Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners and anyone listening online at khbradio.com. Also, be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at the Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past episodes. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo. Grazie per essere con noi anche oggi, mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Last week, we had a very interesting conversation with Kevin Robb on Italy's excellent craft beer tradition, something that would certainly surprise a few. Kevin also shares some of his favorite breweries all over Italy to put on your map on your next trip to Italy. Tonight, I'm very honored to introduce the first of the many Italian excellencies that I have had the fortune to discover and visit during my own travels. We will have with us Maestro Stefano Trabucchi joining us from the city of Cremona. Ma prima, pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. So I'm very honored actually to bring tonight's guest with us. And during this interview, we will do our best to share some of his talents, but we'll have a nice conversation with Maestro Stefano Trabucchi. Buonasera, Maestro.
Buonasera, hello.
So I recently met with Maestro Trabucchi in his laboratory in Cremona. It was a very quiet, warm, welcoming place where time moves slowly. It seems that it is a place wrapped in that centennial tradition of making violins with the tools, the moves, and the techniques that have been the same for centuries, always looking for precision, perfection, and excellence. Also, the traditional violin craftsmanship in Cremona has been inscribed in the 2012 on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity in the UNESCO. Maestro Trabucchi, can you, again, thank you so much for finding time in your very busy schedule to meet with us today. Let's start talking. Let's start with you telling us a little bit about your story. At what age do you get fascinated by this instrument, and how do you develop your passion for violin and violin making?
Okay, perfect. It's already a long history because this year I make my anniversary, 30th anniversary of my workshop. But my history with violin making started at 14 years old in 1984 in Cremona, because I started to play the violin at 8 years old when I was very a child, because in my family, my father was not a luthier, but was a medical doctor with a very big passion for the music, and was a director of the choir in the church. He played piano, organ church, and every one of my brothers and my sister start to play some instrument. And I start to play violin at 8 years old. And at 10, 11, I was curious about the violin, the instrument, in which way was possible to make this special instrument. And I discovered that in Cremona there was and there is an international violin making school. And I start at 14. I moved from my original city is Sondrio, is close to the border with the Switzerland after Lake of Como. And I moved very young in Cremona. Cremona was very different from now. And I started my study, and I studied 4 years in the school, and I take the degree. And after I make a military service, at that time was a mandatory in Italy. Now, no more.
Now it's yes, now it's a
Now it's
faculty.
free.
Yes.
And I made a stage with another master violin maker, Maestro Marco Nolli in Cremona. And this is very important because, of course, in the school, you learn the basic of the violin making. But the experience in the workshop is very, very important. In the workshop, you work 8, 9, 10 hours for day, and with the master, and you discover the secret of the work. This is very important. In 1992, I opened my workshop in Cremona, downtown in Via Bella Rocca, and I'm still here after 30 years.
As I said, it's a very magical place, and you're also very close to the Museum of Violin. So
Right.
it is indeed a nice experience to be able to visit the museum with some historical pieces.
Absolutely.
And then I had the privilege to actually knock on your door, so to speak, and then see you as a maestro in action. So for someone that might be visiting the museum, obviously the name of Stradivari is a name that everyone is accustomed to. Can we talk a little bit about the tradition? Because Stradivari was an apprentice of Andrea Amati, so he had also a stage where he was first an apprentice before he developed his own style.
Yes, was a pupil of Nicola Amati.
Oh.
Amati was the nephew of Andrea Amati, but everything started with Andrea Amati in Cremona in the middle of 15th century, because Andrea Amati with other minor luthers started the tradition of violin making in Cremona. Sometimes someone asks me why in Cremona start this tradition. It's not easy to say, because many things together. So the musical life at the time with the Monteverdi and the request for new instruments, and Andrea Amati make the violin like we know now the violin, with the same shape, with the same F-hole. And this is very important. From Andrea Amati started the family of Andrea Amati with the two sons, Girolamo and Antonio, with the nephew, Nicola, and after Stradivari with his family, and many other families like Bergonzi, like Guarneri, very famous. The two most famous luthers in the world are Stradivari and Guarneri de Gesù. Guarneri de Gesù was a part of very big family of luthers, and Stradivari was the big name of Stradivari family. He had also two sons then work with him, Omobono and Francesco. And this tradition going well very until the beginning of 18th century. 18th century, and after, for different reason, economic reason, many political reason, finish the tradition. During the 18th century, no one making violins in Cremona. This was a very pity story. But at the 1937, during the Mussolini state government, they decide to restart this tradition, and they refunded the international violin making school, and with a very big exhibition of the instruments of Stradivari. And from these days, everything restart. And at the end of 1950, 1960, the school was very good and make many luthers take degree, and the tradition restart. Now in Cremona, we are 180 luthers, professional luthers. This is a unique place in the world, because in other part of the world, of course, in all all over the world they make violin. But in Cremona, we are a very big quantity of professional luthers. This is very important. It's a very good opportunity, and sometimes also a good chance for have a good match with also with the other luthers. Because
so a little bit of competition actually keeps the quality very high.
Okay, luthers, violin making is an art, but also is a business, because we make violins for life, for take money, and this is very big competition, because if you come in my workshop and play a violin and you like it, okay, but if you don't like, you go around the corner and find another luthers. This is very important for the high quality of the violin making, because if you don't make a very good violin with a high quality, this is a very bad situation, because there are so many other violin makers.
Yes, and so there is some sort of association that you belong to that indeed guarantees then the quality.
Yeah, absolutely. We have two main organizations. One is a consortium of UTI, of violin maker Antonio Stradivari. Is an organization with more of 50 makers, then guarantee the quality and the provenance of the violins. And I'm in charge of a board of Confartigianato. Confartigianato is like a union of makers of is more for business, and this is very important. We are more than 80 people under my direction. This is very interesting.
Yes, and so when going back, so to speak, to the tradition again, to the Stradivaris and the Amatis and the Guarnieris, Stradivari had a very proliferous career. He died at 93 with over like 1,100 instruments. Not all of them, obviously, they were violins, probably half of them. And then it's interesting that some of them are still being discovered all over the world. And there was a discovery in 2014 of a Krauts that was found in the closet of an American painter in Harris, Huguet Clark. And for, some of the other collections that is worth mentioning, the King of Spain is a big collector. He has two of them and 2 cellos and 1 viola. But if you don't feel like getting on a plane from the US to see some of examples, there are indeed 2 other places in the US that have incredible collections. One is the Library of Congress, and that has 3 violins, I believe, a viola and a cello. So the including also a Guarnieri. And but another piece of information I was actually surprised to see at the museum, a big collector was the industrialist Henry Ford.
Right. Yes, was a passionate of violin, and he bought many Stradivarius violin, and he made a very good collection. Yeah.
And indeed, but differently from what we would expect, to be just a collector, he was a musician himself. So he really was passionate into, he said that the music of the fiddles of the violins a little bit reminded him of the rural dances of his youth. And in 1920, I believe, in the 20s, actually, he led a revival of fiddling and old-fashioned dancing. So everyone kind of looks at the Stradivarius as, Stradivari has set the standards on how a violin should sound. From your technical expertise, can you tell us a little bit some of those factors, or maybe some of the, so to speak, innovations that Stradivari brought, and then eventually we will move into your own making of the violins. So let's talk a little bit about these elements and these standards that Luther aims to replicate.
Of course, we take the Stradivari violins like a model, a very important model, and especially for the shape, for the F-hole, for the arching, for the elegance of the work, because Stradivari make the most beautiful violin in the world in the past, and we had this kind of model like a sample. And of course, the time change, the sound change, because the sound of the people in the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, and now in 2000 is very different. And we follow the feeling with the player, because now the player want a very loud voice of instruments. For example, in the middle of 1940, 1950, the players didn't want too much loud, too much power, the sound, because the hair was different 70 years ago. And then now we follow this kind of this way. In which way we can change the sound of the violin? Especially the most important things are the thickness of the plate, on the top plate and the back of the violin. This is very important because every kind of wood is different. Some wood is with more or less elasticity, more or less weight, and with a very empiric system, but for my opinion and my experience, very good. With a little movement of the plate, I taste the elasticity of the back and the top. And this way, I understand if it's possible to take out more thickness or not. This is very important. And of course, for example, the strings of the violins change from last century to this century. Stradivari violins in the past was made with a Baroque system, and during the 18th century was changed to the modern system. But the aesthetic part didn't change. But every instrument of Stradivari was changed inside, and following the new hair of the player. This is very important. And for my opinion, the most important factor for the sound of the violin is the thickness of the plate top and the back, and of course everything. But this is very important.
What are some of the woods that you use to construct your violin? Because I would assume that would be also number one, your raw material.
This is a very important point. I use only seasoned wood, minimum with 10 years of seasoned. Now I using the wood than I bought minimum 10 years ago. I have a big stock. And why? Because of course, with seasoning, the wood lost the water, the water inside of the wood, and is very good for the stability of the instrument and for the acoustic. And I use for the top, and this is already from the Andrea Amati violins. Andrea Amati violins then show in the Museum of Violin is made with Italian red spruce in the front and East Europe maple for the back, for the ribs and the scroll. And this kind of wood we still use now. This is very special. We use the same wood of 500 years ago. And the Italian red spruce comes especially from the part of close to Val di Fiemme, is very famous valley in Italy for this kind of wood.
Wonderful. And also the aesthetic plays a strong component as well. And we see little differences in, I would say, the coloring, the varnish, the final coating that is given. Maybe, 500 years ago, they seem to be a little more on the yellowish, and then they're moving. Can you tell us a little bit, how does a violin acquire that spectacular, brilliant finish?
Yes, the varnish is very personal things in the uthers. Of course, all the instruments, the wood take the natural color of the wood, and for this, there's a reason many violins of the past are a little bit brown, because the wood become older, is become brown. And now there are many colors. Someone like a red color, someone like red brown, yellow. It's very personal point.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw in many years of exhibition around the world, then the color is the first things then the player see in the violin. When the people come in exhibition, the first things then they take attention from the visitor is the color. If they like the colors, they take the violin, and this is very strange thing.
And then also there might be some musicians that might have custom requirements, maybe for the sound, or maybe to make it somehow bigger, smaller, or to make it a little more comfortable to their own style.
Yes, sometimes happen, but not many times, because violin is very traditional instrument. Someone want some, maybe some with some special wood, with some request about the wood, or request about the accessories, but not many times really.
Okay, I'm going to try to see if I can actually have a little sound clip to give our audience an idea of the beautiful harmony that comes out your instruments. Okay, so your violins, you are actually celebrating your 30th anniversary, as you have indicated, and every 5 years you come out with a series, and the one for the 30th anniversary is actually a very embellished and rich, so to speak. Can you tell us what are the what is special about this series?
Right. For my 30th anniversary, I put on the backing of the violin, in one part of the back, then is not take out the sound, a special jewel with then reproduces the Italian flag is green, wine, and red. With the white is in diamonds with my initial T, and on the left is a green in emerald, and on the right are red in rubies. In jewel in 24 colors of gold. And I put on the button of the back, and this I call this Italian collection, Italian collection for my 30th anniversary. Yes, every 5 years I make something special.
And also something else that obviously whoever is in the industry knows, but for us, I'm not a violin player. There is also the name of the artist usually is, there is a little piece of paper, so to speak, that is inserted that can be seen inside the violin. Is that correct?
You mean the label?
Yeah, inside, yes.
Inside, of course. Before then, I closed the top with the back and the ribs. I put my label with my name, Stefano Trabucchi, Cremona, and the ears. And I put also fire stamp in different part of the violin. This is very important for the originality, original of the violin, because there are already some fake violin with my name. This is very bad, but okay.
Yeah. Well, it's, so to speak, is also a source of flattery as well. Obviously, we're not promoting making false instruments, but also you have this beautiful, as you said, a certificate of authenticity, which are wax stamp. And tell us a little bit about where these violins go, because outside Italy, there seems to be a pretty flowering, a pretty interesting violin tradition in Asian countries. Is that correct?
Right. It's very big market for me, the Asian country, Japan, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, because in Asia, the kids play violins or other instruments like a educational system. In the educational system, they study violin, viola, cello, piano, and for this reason, we have a very big market in that part of the world, but also in the USA. In USA, I have many clients, my customers, then play my violins, and this is very important, and I'm very happy for this. In the last June, I was in Los Angeles for NAMM show. NAMM show is a very big exhibition in Anaheim. It's the biggest exhibition for musical industry, and I show my instruments there, and I was very good.
Yes, I've seen actually videos. There is an interesting fellow that is indeed an expert in violins, and he showed us all the process from, I think you also collaborated to show when his violin was getting made all the way to packaging, because the packaging of the violin that is going so far away is also extremely important. What are some of the parts that get removed that then the recipient will have to
normally
put back
I remove the sound post inside of the violin and take out the strings and tail piece, and when the violin arrives at destination, is needed to go to luthers to put and set up everything. This is more safe for the flight, for the courier, and this in 30 years I count on the maybe 1 or 2 times I have some problem with the instrument, but not from my guilty, from the guilty of courier, because I use a very strong system for shipment of instruments.
So for young violin players, there are some contests and or some other events. What are some of the appointments, some of the affairs, the trades, or some of the contests are important for the young artists?
Yes, in Cremona, there is every 3 years a very important competition from violin maker. It's called the triennale. Triennale is every 3 years. This is very important. I participated many years ago, and I won a prize. And it's important for the young makers to start to make a competition. In this way, the people know the name.
Wonderful. So we have arrived at the conclusion of our interview. We will make sure that for those of you who are also following us on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe, we will have additional material that Maestro Trabucchi is going to share with us as far as the actual process of making a violin directly from his laboratory, which I found it very fascinating to see these instruments and also the curls of the wood that I get chipped away, and how the shape is achieved, something that obviously we wouldn't be able to show you today. So please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're in Cremona, Maestro Trabucchi, can you tell us a little bit, for those that are indeed into playing violin, how they can make contact with you, people that are serious about this art and craft?
My workshop is very close to Museum of Violin, only 1 minute walk. And the address is Via Bella Rocca 14. And I have, of course, a website, trabucchi.com. And my EG profile is Trabucchi_violins, and of course Facebook. It's very easy to reach me in every, also in the Google, very easy.
Yes, so make an appointment, because obviously the maestro and his apprentices are busy working. So it's not at a street level shop where people they need their piece to be able to concentrate. But indeed, also the account, the Instagram account, you will see close-up videos of the production process. Well, thank you very much again for your time, Maestro Trabucchi, and I hope to see you soon again, maybe when you come back to the US.
For sure. Thank you so much for your interview.
Benissimo, grazie, arrivederci.
Grazie, a presto.